I walked out of the hospital holding the test results. The sun was shining, and a bright smile spread across my face. I couldn't wait to share the good news with Ryan Cooper. I was pregnant, and he was going to be a father. But the moment I pulled out my phone, the smile disappeared. A news alert popped up. Genius director Ryan Cooper's remake becomes a hit once again, and the leading lady is her. I tapped on it. There she was, Emily Lane. Her photo dominated the page. The headline read, "A dream come true in our lifetime." The internet exploded. Director Cooper is back with his leading lady. He never really got over her. Years ago, Ryan had created Wildfire specifically for Emily. Love like wildfire, fierce, unstoppable, and enduring. Through that film, Ryan declared his grand love for Emily to the whole world. But because of industry politics, the role that was meant for Emily was stolen away. Ryan couldn't fight back. When he was interviewed back then, he gave a bitter shake of the head and said there was nothing he could do. The sorrow in his eyes was plain to see. Now, facing the reporters again, Ryan smiled. He had finally gotten what he wanted. He looked at Emily with an expression of utter tenderness and said, "She's the only leading lady in this film." Emily looked deeply moved, her eyes shimmering with tears. That moment was picked up and reposted wildly across every major platform. Everyone was cheering for their reunion and celebrating their story, everyone but me, because I was Ryan Cooper's wife. At some point, the test results slipped from my hand. A car drove past, and the paper was gone. I looked up at the sun. It suddenly felt blinding. Ryan and I had known each other since we were kids. I fell for him quietly, early on. Just to be closer to him, I applied to the film academy. But on my first day at the school, Ryan showed up with his girlfriend. "This is the person I love most," he said, looking at Emily with a deep affection I had never seen before. Then Emily smiled at me and said, "This is my little sister." From that moment on, I could only bury my crush deep inside. I witnessed their deep, passionate love. I watched them support each other and promised to chase their dreams together. Later, they broke up because of poverty. You could say that Wildfire was a cathartic expression of all the grievances they had suffered due to being poor. After that, Emily went abroad and never came back. "Have you really let go?" I once asked Ryan. He took a drag from his cigarette and slowly exhaled, his face blurred behind the smoke. His voice turned soft. "Yeah, I've moved on. It's all in the past. People have to look forward." He put out the cigarette and gently held my hand. "You're my present now. I'll do my best to be a good husband." Our marriage started because of his mom. She noticed my feelings for Ryan and worried he couldn't move on from the past, subtly and not so subtly created opportunities for us to get closer. I never thought Ryan would actually propose. Maybe he didn't really love me yet. Maybe he was just compromising with reality. But marrying someone I had loved for 10 years? That was too tempting to resist. In the 3 years since, I've put my whole heart into this marriage. Slowly, we started to resemble a normal couple. There were even moments of sweetness in our daily life. I thought we would keep going like this forever, until I saw that news, and suddenly, everything made sense. No wonder Ryan had been so busy lately, barely replying to my messages, only coming home late at night. He had planned this from the start, to make up for what he and Emily lost, on the very day she returned to the country. And I had no idea. I was still thinking I could surprise him with my pregnancy. It was already late. I tried calling Ryan several times, but he didn't pick up. I had no choice but to call his assistant, Jake. "Do you know where Ryan is?" I asked. Jake hesitated on the other end of the line. "He's still at a dinner meeting. It hasn't ended yet," he finally said. "Did he drink a lot?" I asked. "Should I come pick him up?" Jake's voice on the other end sounded tense. "No, please don't, Ellie. It's fine. The dinner's over. I'll take Ryan home myself." I sat on the couch waiting. The moment the door opened, I didn't even get a word out before I froze. Emily Lane stood at the doorway, holding on to Ryan's arm. He looked surprised to see me. "Oh, you've been staying at Ryan's place recently?" she asked, still stuck in the past, back when I was just Ryan Cooper's little sister. But now, I was his wife. For a moment, I hated our hidden marriage. Ryan had said he didn't want our relationship to interfere with my rising acting career, so only a few close people knew we were married. Of course, Emily, living abroad all these years, had no idea. She didn't know that I wasn't just staying at Ryan's house. I had been sharing a bed with him for the past 3 years. "What are you standing there for?" Emily called out, impatient. Come help me get your brother inside. She patted Ryan's flushed face and muttered, half joking, he's so heavy tonight. I wasn't even sure how I walked over. Emily kept chattering, telling me how much Ryan had drunk tonight, how the entire film crew had tried and failed to stop him. He was probably just happy, she said softly. Getting back something you lost, it's never easy. Ryan leaned heavily on me. I tried to steady his arm, but suddenly, like snapping out of a dream, he flinched and pushed my hand away. Instead, he clung tightly to Emily, his expression anxious and restless. Emily, don't leave, he pleaded like a lost child. Please, don't leave me. Emily soothed him gently, her voice soft. I'm not leaving, I won't ever leave again. Only then did Ryan calm down. I stood there, staring at the hand he just flung aside, and something deep inside me began to crack. I wanted to tell Emily that Ryan and I were married, but the words stuck in my throat. You two? Got married? Emily's voice rang out, sharp and disbelieving, cutting through the heavy air and pulling me out of my daze. I followed her gaze. There, high up on the living room wall, was our wedding photo. Ryan and I, side by side. The mention of our marriage seemed to jolt Ryan back to clarity. The confusion in his eyes faded, and he instinctively called Emily's name. But when he met her tear-filled eyes, his voice caught, and the pain returned to his face. I stood there, frozen, the chill creeping all over me. Ryan, I said, barely recognizing my own trembling voice. Do you even see me anymore? He paused, stiffly turning his head to finally look at his wife. Just then, Emily yanked her hand from his grip and ran out, crying. The moment her hand left his gaze left me too. He took a few steps to follow her, but then stopped. I held my breath, hope briefly flickering in my chest. Ellie, I should go find her, he said. It's too late, it's not safe for her to be out alone. If he had looked back at that moment, he would have seen me, standing there in the hallway, the light in my eyes slowly going out. Once he disappeared from view, I collapsed to the floor. The tears spilled silently down my cheeks. I had never felt it so clearly before. In Ryan Cooper's heart, no one could ever compare to Emily Lane. As long as Emily was around, Ryan's eyes would always follow her. I placed a hand over my belly, the sorrow swelling inside me. 10 years of love meant nothing. 3 years of marriage meant nothing. And what about this child? Just when I was beginning to feel joy about this new life inside me, maybe Ryan had already been preparing to run back to someone else. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. The floor grew colder beneath me. My emotions had burst out of control, but I had to think of the baby. I forced my weak body to stand, turned off all the lights, and lay down in bed. The darkness around me surged in, pressing from all sides, as if rushing to drown me. Only a sliver of moonlight spilled through the window, falling softly across my body. I lay there with my eyes wide open, staring blankly as my thoughts drifted far away. Ryan and I used to be like that faint beam of moonlight. We were neighbors and barely interacted at first. I grew up without a mother, and my father couldn't have cared less about me. Naturally, I became the one everyone at school picked on, because no one was there to stand up for me. That was until one day, Ryan noticed the hidden bruises on my body. When I was being bullied again, he suddenly appeared like a hero descending from the sky. You're the ones who keep picking on her, right? He said, without hesitation, striking back hard. Apologize to her. I watched the people who usually strutted around like they owned the world bow their heads and beg for forgiveness, while Ryan stood beside me with a stern face. In that moment, I thought he was glowing. Why didn't you ever say anything about being bullied? He asked angrily, walking me home. I looked down and mumbled, I'm Ellie, born unlucky. Even if I said something, it wouldn't matter. He paused for a while, then gently placed a hand on my head. It matters to me. From then on, no one dared touch me again. Because I had a brother now. A brother who promised to always protect me. Ryan even brought me into his home. His parents were kind and treated me warmly. From Ryan, I received a kind of love and care I'd never known. Falling in love with him felt so natural. My dream was simply to stay close to Ryan, so after high school, I chose to attend the same school as him. I just wanted to get a little closer. But then he met Emily. I watched him love her so fiercely and passionately. I was envious, painfully so. And the distance between us only grew wider. Still, I thought, maybe chasing after someone didn't always need to end in a result. Maybe it was enough just to keep running after them. Then, they broke up for good. And Ryan proposed to me. It felt like standing among the clouds, and above me was the moon I had always longed to reach. I naively believed this was fate, that I was destined to be Ryan's future. I never imagined it was all just a cruel joke from the universe. After all these years of chasing, this was where it led. Maybe it was time to stop. In the silence of the room, I drew the curtains closed, shutting out that last sliver of moonlight. Ryan came home in the early hours of the morning, trying to be as quiet as possible, but I still heard him. I walked out wordlessly and turned on the light. When he saw me, he looked visibly uncomfortable. "You're still up?" "Ryan," I interrupted him calmly. "Let's get a divorce." My tone was flat, like I was stating something trivial. I even managed to curl my lips into a smile. "Emily's back. I'll let you be with her." There was a meter of distance between us, and I looked him in the eye. His expression twisted in shock, like he'd never imagined I'd say something like that. The air froze for a few seconds. "I don't agree," he said suddenly, his voice unexpectedly loud. His face darkened with a frightening intensity I rarely saw. Instinctively, I stepped back. Ryan seemed to realize he'd lost control and adjusted his expression before walking toward me. His voice softer. "It's not what you think between me and Emily." That one sentence made it sound like I was being unreasonable. A surge of anger flared up in me. "Not what I think?" I backed away from his outstretched hand, my voice trembling. "Then what is it, exactly? You made a public declaration that you still can't forget her. You clung to her in front of your wife, begging her not to leave. You cared about how hurt she was, but not how hurt I was." By the time I reached the last word, a tear had already fallen onto my hand. I turned my face away and wiped the stream of tears escaping my eyes. Some things, when you think about them too much, become unbearable. It was never as simple as I wanted to believe. Ryan was speechless. After a long silence, he finally admitted in a low voice, "I won't deny that I still have feelings for him. But I know I've lost. And that's enough." Exhausted, I turned away. A dull ache stirred in my abdomen. I gently placed a hand over it and whispered, "I'm sorry, baby. I kept you up too." The next day, Emily asked to meet me. We sat in a cafe. Her eyes were slightly red, and she looked tired, like she'd cried hard the night before. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen. I didn't know." She paused, then slowly added, "You and Ryan are married?" I stirred the milk in my cup silently, saying nothing. "I heard you and Ryan argued yesterday. Because of me," she said, looking at me with a faint smile that felt forced, heavy with sorrow. "You don't need to take it so personally," she continued, her voice soft and slightly choked. "Ryan and I are in the past. We missed our chance. So you have to be happy." A single tear slipped from the corner of her eye. Emily quickly turned her head and wiped it away, trying to hide it. That scene, that image, felt all too familiar. But this time, instead of sympathy, I felt a wave of irritation. She looked so heartbreakingly nostalgic, and still tried to play the part of the generous ex wishing me happiness. Suddenly, I remembered how Ryan was the same way last night, admitting he still had feelings for Emily while refusing to divorce me. Like I was the one standing in the way of their love. As if they were only holding back because of me. It was ridiculous, and I actually let out a laugh. That was when Ryan showed up. "Emily, why are you crying?" he asked, clearly flustered. He grabbed a tissue from the table and began gently wiping the tears from her face. Once again, I wasn't even in his eyes. My heart had gone completely numb. Emily glanced at me, then reached out and pushed his hand away. "You should be worried about Ellie. She's your wife." Ryan pulled his hand back and slowly sat down beside me. A long silence fell between us. "Ellie," he began, but didn't finish. Suddenly, he shot to his feet. "Emily, you're having an allergic reaction." Emily gasped, covering her face as red blotches began to appear on her skin. Ryan immediately realized it was the milk in the coffee. I knew Emily was allergic to milk. I remembered once when we were out shopping and I handed her a cup of milk tea. Her skin had broken out in hives almost instantly. Ryan had come rushing in, scooped her up, and carried her to the hospital. Afterward, he'd looked at me with so much blame in his eyes, like Emily was the most precious thing in the world. And now, the scene was repeating itself. Ryan scooped Emily into his arms again, rushing out of the cafe. His face was filled with real, undeniable panic. I was left behind, staring at the coffee on the table. Something about it felt off. Emily had ordered the coffee ahead of time. She knew it contained milk. If she was allergic, why would she still order it? And then I remembered that time with the milk tea. She hadn't refused it either. It wasn't until I saw her rush to the hospital that I even knew about the allergy. I'd been overwhelmed by guilt and worry at the time, never questioning why she drank it when she knew what would happen. Now I compared the two moments. What hadn't changed was Ryan's reaction, his care, his panic, and the way I was completely ignored. Something began to form in my mind, slowly rising from the depths. What if Emily had done it on purpose? What if she wanted to remind me, to make it unmistakably clear, just how important she was to Ryan? Love is like fire. When it burns that fiercely, it can't be hidden. Even Ryan's mom had seen how much I liked him. So had Emily, all those years ago. Maybe this was her way of pushing me away back then. And maybe it still is now. I didn't want to think about it anymore. I had already made up my mind to get a divorce. I grabbed my bag and left, heading straight to a law firm. All I asked for was a divorce agreement. That night, when I got home, I opened our chat to send Ryan a message. But the last messages from a few days ago stared back at me. I had written, "I have a surprise for you." 3 hours later, he replied, "What is it?" And I said, "Not telling yet, you'll find out soon." I felt a bitter ache. At the time, I was constantly exhausted and nauseous. I had bought a pregnancy test with both nervousness and hope in my heart. Every second of waiting felt like an eternity. When I finally saw the 2 pink lines, I nearly cried from happiness. I thought I was one step closer to the warm, happy home I had dreamed of. I couldn't wait to message Ryan. I called it a surprise. But I hadn't said the words outright, just in case the test was wrong. I figured I'd go to the hospital, confirm it, and tell him when it was certain. But I never got the chance. He never even asked. I let out a bitter laugh. All his attention was on Emily. Why would he care what I had to say? I typed, "I'm waiting for you at home," and hit send. But my mood was nothing like before. When Ryan came home, I was sitting on the couch watching a comedy. I was laughing so hard, I didn't even hear him come in. He cleared his throat by the door. I looked over but didn't react. His brows furrowed slightly. This was the first time I hadn't gone to greet him, hadn't smiled like I used to. But his expression quickly returned to normal. "What are you watching that's so funny?" he asked as he walked over, reaching out to pat my head, just like he always did. The scent of perfume hit me. It was Emily's favorite. A wave of nausea swept over me. I instinctively flinched away. He wanted to keep pretending everything was fine, but I refused to play along. His hand froze midair. A brief look of confusion crossed his face before his tone darkened, calling my name sharply, his usual sign of displeasure. In the past, I would have quickly softened my voice and tried to comfort him. But not anymore. The tension thickened between us. I turned away, muted the TV, and said, "I had someone draft a divorce agreement. Just sign it when the time comes." Ryan's face instantly darkened. His voice was low and angry. "Ellie, have you had enough of this yet?" I didn't understand. I had already lost so much. Why was he still so dissatisfied? "I gave up my place for Emily. Aren't you happy?" I tilted my head and asked, confused. Ryan let out a cold laugh. "Wow, so generous of you." I lowered my eyes and said quietly, "I'm just being realistic. Someone who doesn't belong to me, no matter how much I chase after him, it's useless. So let's divorce." After hearing me bring up divorce again and again, Ryan finally lost it. He gritted his teeth. "Fine, but don't you dare regret it." I went quiet for a few seconds. Seeing that, Ryan's expression eased a little. His eyebrows lifted slightly as if he was sure I'd come crawling back. But I told him calmly, "Don't worry. I won't regret it." That's when Ryan snapped, like a cat whose tail had just been stepped on. "Great," he shouted. "I won't regret it either. Don't think I won't divorce you because I'm in love with you. The only person I've ever loved is Emily. I've always thought of you as a little sister. If it weren't for our parents, I never would have married you." His words came out fast, almost frantic, like he had something to prove. I stared at him, stunned. I had never seen this version of Ryan before. Never imagined he'd say something like that. "Ryan," I said softly, "you were the one who proposed to me. I never forced you into anything. We've been married for 3 years, and now you're telling me you only see me as a sister? Would you kiss and hold your sister? Would you have a child with your sister?" The truth about the baby came out in the middle of this argument, not the moment I had imagined. Ryan froze, his lips parted, but said nothing. I didn't want to speak anymore. The disappointment in my eyes had already reached its limit. In that instant, I realized Ryan Cooper was never worthy of my love. I yanked off my wedding ring and without hesitation, tossed it into the trash. Then I turned and walked away. Just as the door slammed shut behind me, I heard the sound of Ryan hurling his phone across the room. A loud crash followed. Something had shattered, but I didn't look back. I returned to the set to finish filming the final scenes. While I was there, the divorce papers were finalized. I mailed them to Ryan but never got a reply. Work was overwhelming and I wasn't in the best shape. I told myself I'd find him again after the shoot was over. On the last day of filming, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Ryan's mother. I took a deep breath, forced myself to sound calm, and answered. "Hi, Mom." "Ryan's been in a foul mood every day lately," she said right away. "It's like he's walking around with a stick of dynamite. Then I found out you two are getting a divorce." I didn't respond. She kept going. "I know you must be upset because Emily came back. But sweetheart, a little fight is one thing. You can't just throw your marriage away. You two have been through so much together." "Yes," I said quietly. "It hasn't been easy. I loved him in silence for 10 years. I waited patiently, hoping one day it would become something real. So when we finally got married, I cherished it. I gave everything to that relationship, hoping it would bloom. But now I know that flower will never bloom, and I don't want to wait anymore. I'm serious this time." There was a long silence on the line. Then came the sound of a door slamming in the background. Her voice grew anxious. "Why are you doing this? You know Ryan and Emily had a thing in the past, but you two are married now. Emily coming back doesn't change that." She took a deep breath. Ryan didn't remake that movie to rekindle things with her. He just wanted to find closure, to finally end that chapter. "Don't overthink it." She rambled on, trying to convince me, but I cut in. "Do you actually believe what you're saying?" Silence. She didn't answer. Outside, my assistant waved at me. It was time to shoot. "I have to go. We'll talk later." I hung up. After filming wrapped, my manager Anna came over and gently patted my shoulder. Her expression was full of concern. "I didn't schedule any new work for you," she said. "You need to take care of your body." I tried to joke, "I'm fine, really." She didn't look convinced. "I heard you haven't been eating much lately." She motioned toward my figure. "Look at you, you've lost weight." I promised her I'd take care of myself. Ryan had taken up the biggest part of my youth, and now I was determined to purge him from my life. But it wasn't easy. In front of others, I could force a smile and act strong. But in private, my emotions were fragile and raw. Habit is a terrifying thing. Years of loving him had become part of me. Even when I knew he didn't deserve it, I couldn't stop myself from thinking about him. Sometimes the pain of it all pushed me to the brink, tempting me to beg him to come back. But I wouldn't give in. I could only keep fighting it, enduring the withdrawal like a deep, wrenching wound. "You're making that face again," Anna said, pinching my cheek gently, like a soulless ghost. I forced a smile, but she couldn't bear to look anymore. She pulled me into her arms and hugged me tight. "Ellie, hang in there, okay? Everything's gonna be all right." I blinked my dry eyes. "Okay?" "When your baby is born," she whispered, painting a soft picture of the future in my ear. I rested a hand on my belly, listening quietly, letting that hope for the future slowly chase away the darkness of now. I knew Ryan had become a festering wound on my soul, a wound that would never heal unless I fully cleaned it out. And though the process hurt, as long as I could endure the pain, I would be okay. There were still so many beautiful things waiting for me in life. "So Ellie," I told myself, "don't be too sad. Just keep moving forward. Don't look back." Between shoots, I found myself searching online for parenting book lists. That was when I saw Ryan and Emily back on the trending topics again. I clicked in without much thought. At the film's opening press conference, a reporter asked a gossipy question. "Everyone knows Wildfire tells a passionate love story, and the lead characters are standing right in front of us. I'm curious, after all these years, is there a chance for you two to rekindle that old flame?" Emily flushed slightly, as if shy. She glanced at Ryan, her eyes flickering. Then she quickly dodged the question, answering, "We'll leave it to fate." Ryan, on the other hand, remained composed. He responded diplomatically, saying he hoped everyone would focus more on the movie itself. "My personal life is not something I want to discuss," he added. A flash of disappointment crossed Emily's eyes, but she forced a smile and nodded in agreement. Maybe she was distracted because as they left the stage she accidentally tripped. Ryan instinctively reached out and caught her. She stumbled right into his arms, her head tilted back slightly, and her red lips brushed across his cheek, leaving a faint, ambiguous mark. They locked eyes. It looked just like a scene from the movie. The internet exploded. Ah! He didn't dodge. Are they not together already? Hurry up and get married. I'll bring the marriage office to you. And yet, surprisingly, I felt calm. I even found myself thinking, Emily really had been away from the cameras for too long. Her reactions were stiff, unable to mask her emotions. Or maybe she was doing it on purpose. Either way, I didn't care anymore. I smiled to myself. I guess all that emotional desensitization hadn't been for nothing. I had watched so many clips of Ryan and Emily together, tormenting myself over and over. But now, even seeing them like that, I felt nothing. I opened my calendar. The final day of filming was just around the corner, and it was time I formally scheduled my divorce with Ryan. When the last scene wrapped, I politely declined the crew's offer to throw me a wrap party. As I turned a corner, someone unexpected blocked my way. Luna Lee, the female lead of the film. She was also the girlfriend of our main investor, Mr. Lee. A classic kept woman, fragile and gentle on the outside, but feisty and temperamental beneath the surface. We'd only ever interacted during scenes, so I was confused. "What is it?" I asked. She led me to a quiet, secluded spot among the trees. Then she suddenly asked, "Do you know what a white moonlight is?" "What?" I blinked, caught off guard. She went on without waiting for an answer. "It's the kind of person who makes everyone else fade into the background. As long as they're there, no one else matters." She turned to me, still wearing her Qing Dynasty costume from the set, her red lips curved into a strange smile. "Don't you think that's true?" I stared at her, sensing something off. Then came the punchline. "Emily is that flawless moonlight," she said. "And you're nothing but the dull dust on the ground. The difference in how Ryan treats you versus her, hasn't that been obvious enough?" She stepped closer with each word, her tone turning accusatory. "So why haven't you signed the divorce papers yet?" Emily. Luna. So they were family. How ironic. Everyone knew about Ryan and Emily's love story, and my marriage with him? Practically invisible. It hit me. Emily must have sent her. There was no other way Luna would know these things. But what I couldn't figure out was how it had turned into me refusing to sign the divorce papers, when Ryan had been the one dragging his feet all along. Luna looked annoyed. "I came on my own," she snapped. "I just can't stand people like you, always inserting themselves into someone else's true love. Don't you realize you're just the third wheel?" I nearly laughed. Ryan and I didn't get married until 2 years after he and Emily broke up. I looked her dead in the eyes and said coldly, "They call that true love?" Emily left the country, not died. If it was really love, why didn't they try to find each other? And if it was so sacred, why did Ryan marry me? As for who the third party is, I glanced at Luna and said coldly, "Take a good look at yourself first." I'd lost all interest in arguing. I turned to leave, but Luna suddenly lunged at me and shoved me hard. "You're full of crap," she shouted. The force of the push knocked me off balance. I fell hard, my body tumbling before slamming into a tree. Luna was just about to mock my disheveled state until she saw the pool of blood spreading beneath me. Her pupils contracted in horror. The shock and fear on her face were unmistakable. I stared blankly at the blood. My head buzzed, and suddenly I couldn't hear anything. I fumbled for my phone, my hands trembling as I unlocked the screen. When the emergency line connected, I choked back sobs, my teeth clattering from shock. Please help me. Save my baby." Then everything went dark. I felt my stomach grow emptier, colder, until I slipped into unconsciousness. When I woke, the first words out of my mouth were, "Is the baby still here?" My assistant, a fresh-faced college grad, stood nearby, pale as a sheet. He had never witnessed anything like this. When he heard me, his lips trembled, but he couldn't get a word out. I knew then. I stared into nothingness, and suddenly I began hitting myself, sobbing hysterically. "It's my fault. It's all my fault." Tears streamed uncontrollably down my cheeks. Anna, my manager, rushed in and pulled me into her arms, gently trying to calm me. Why did I follow her? Why did I even argue with her? I could have been more careful. I cried as I beat my own head. Anna held my hands tightly, her voice cracking. "Ellie, it's not your fault. Please stop blaming yourself." I collapsed into her arms, weeping uncontrollably. "Anna, I lost my baby." I thought of all the parenting books I had read. I thought of the baby items sitting in my online shopping cart. I remembered all the dreams I had. How I wanted this child to be the happiest in the world. Even if they didn't have a father. But now, all of it shattered before my eyes. Ryan came. Emily was with him. The moment I saw them, my eyes turned red with fury. I grabbed a cup from the table and hurled it with all my strength. It smashed on the floor, shards of porcelain slicing into Emily's ankle. She let out a soft cry and looked at Ryan, eyes watery and full of grievance. Ryan, she whispered his name, sounding delicate and wronged. For the first time, Ryan didn't look at her. He looked at me instead, eyes wide in disbelief. We really had a child? Not have, had. His relief was almost visible. So, the stuff online isn't true, he murmured. I didn't know that my private pain had already become a public spectacle. Accusations of premarital pregnancy and miscarriage were splashed across headlines, painting me as some disgrace. And all the while, Ryan and Emily had been casually revisiting old campus memories. That was my baby, I said through clenched teeth, staring at them with burning hatred. But now it's gone. Ryan froze. Do you know why it's gone? I asked, then answered myself. Because of your negligence, because of Emily's provocation, because of Luna's assault. I never hurt any of you, so why did you all hurt me? Why my child? My voice cracked into a scream as I grabbed object after object from the table, throwing them at the people who had destroyed me. You're insane, Emily shrieked, dodging. Ryan remained frozen, rooted in place. The noise brought nurses rushing in. The patient is emotionally unstable. Please leave immediately, one of them said sternly. The door shut behind them. I sat there in silence, tears flowing without sound. My assistant, still trembling in the corner, approached and gently patted my back. When I was told that Luna wouldn't face any punishment, I went silent for a long time. The place where it happened was remote, with no surveillance. We had no evidence, and Luna had Mr. Lee backing her. He said he'd compensate you with better resources, Anna told me matter-of-factly. If you really push this, we'll just lose more. I finally nodded. Okay. Anna reached out and stroked my hair, full of sorrow. I want to get away for a while, I said, turning to look out the window. The weather was beautiful, blue sky, white clouds, warm sunshine. So vibrant, so alive, and nothing like me. Anna agreed without hesitation. Yes, of course. Before I left, I finalized the divorce with Ryan. He knelt down, begging me to forgive him, begging me to start over, saying we could have another child. I told him, that baby is gone, he won't be coming back, because his mother failed to protect him. I couldn't even take revenge. He must not like me anymore. I traveled alone to many places. Everywhere I went, I visited the local temples and prayed for him, prayed that in his next life he would be safe and well. Later, I met a woman I'd never seen before. During a casual conversation, I told her my story with an eerie calmness, about my mother who passed away, my father who never cared, my husband whom I had loved for years but who ultimately betrayed me, and the child I waited for with hope, who suddenly left before ever arriving. I told her it seemed like I was never destined for a complete family. She sighed. That's life, bitter like a song. Every person carries scars, but we still have to live with everything we've got. Life is about being wounded and healing again. I looked at the crowd passing by and nodded. We didn't offer each other any deep insights. Everyone has their own road to walk. Before we parted ways, she said, I hope you'll be brave, and maybe luckier next time. We clinked our bottles of water like a toast and said goodbye. That's when I decided to start my life over. I began auditioning again, taking on new roles, returning to film sets. I quieted my heart and focused on honing my craft. Even the director complimented me, saying my acting had improved a lot. I smiled faintly and replied, maybe it's because I've lived more now. Actors need life experience, especially those most people are afraid to feel. Pain, tragedy, despair, helplessness. Once you've actually experienced those emotions, your performance doesn't stay on the surface. As long as you keep working steadily like this, the director said, patting my shoulder with an approving look, you've got a bright future ahead of you. I lowered my gaze and gave a soft smile. Sometimes Ryan would show up around the set, waiting. I heard he and Emily had been arguing constantly, which caused Wildfire's production to slow to a crawl. I didn't care. Whenever I saw him, I acted like I hadn't. One time, Ryan grabbed my sleeve and pleaded, Ellie, please don't ignore me. I didn't react. Even if you want to hit me, yell at me, anything. Please, just don't shut me out. He looked worn out, completely broken. I shook his hand off and said clearly, Ryan Cooper, stop interfering in my life. His eyes filled with pain, his voice hoarse, he muttered, I'm sorry, Ellie. I was wrong. I was really, really wrong. Tears welled up at the corners of his eyes. I let out a long sigh, left him standing there, and walked away with firm steps. I was cast in a new role, an unusual one. A deaf-mute woman, trafficked into a rural village. She was treated as nothing more than a tool for childbirth, subjected to domestic violence and cruelty. Her suffering was silent, but deafening. To prepare for the role, I isolated myself, studied intensely, and traveled to remote mountains for on-location shooting. During breaks, I hardly spoke to anyone. There was only one companion, a little mutt named Shadow. He was the character's only solace in the story. Shadow wagged his tail and followed me everywhere, obedient and sweet. One day, he suddenly bit down hard on the cuff of my pants. A second later, the ground began to tremble. The uneven dirt floor shook violently. Bricks and dust started falling from the walls. Earthquake, someone shouted in panic. Run! Chaos erupted. I scooped up Shadow and ran for dear life. The collapsing building groaned behind me, louder than thunder. Up ahead, a beam snapped. Tiles from the roof came crashing down. My path was blocked. With no other choice, I clutched Shadow and huddled in a corner near the load-bearing wall. He curled quietly in my arms, trembling slightly. The quake hadn't stopped. Falling debris cut my face and arms. Blood seeped out slowly, but thankfully the injuries weren't serious. Time dragged on. I felt myself growing faint. With a hoarse voice, I whispered, Do you think we'll make it out of this alive? Shadow let out a soft whine and pressed his warm little body closer to mine. I gave a soft laugh. If we make it out alive, I'll take you home, I told Shadow, for a very, very long time. I was on the verge of falling asleep when Shadow suddenly started barking nonstop. Voices shouted from outside. Tree branches and sticks were being used to pry open the fallen bricks. A few beams of light filtered in. I forced my eyes open, biting my tongue to stay conscious. Save the dog first, I said weakly. I pushed Shadow out into the open. Then I crawled out of the rubble myself. Across from me stood Ryan. His face was covered in dirt, his eyes red. The moment he saw me, he charged forward and pulled me into a tight embrace. His whole body was trembling, his voice hoarse and choked. You're alive. You're alive. I didn't have the strength to push him away. Yeah, I managed in reply. The medical staff rushed in to treat my wounds and start an IV. One of the nurses smiled. Young lady, this your boyfriend? The road into the village was blocked by a landslide. He climbed for 6 hours straight over the mountains to get here. Look at his hands. He's been digging through debris until they bled. I glanced at Ryan. All 10 of his fingers were cut and bloodied. Thank you, I said sincerely. Ryan gave a crooked smile. But we're not dating. The light in his eyes dimmed again. Later, a reporter asked me what relationship I had with Ryan, why he would risk his life to find me. I smiled and replied, We used to be neighbors. He's like a brother to me. Standing nearby, Ryan's eyes immediately turned red. He muttered under his breath, A brother. The pain in his voice was unmistakable. In private, he asked me, How can I be your brother? We've kissed, we've shared a bed, we even had a child together, a brother? My smile turned cold. That's what you used to say, remember? Ryan staggered slightly, his eyes clouded with 1,000 layers of pain. I could only see him as pathetic. He said he loved me, but he betrayed me. He said he didn't love me, but acted like he did. But whether he loved me or not, what did it matter now? I didn't care anymore. Then I hit the trending page again, once more, as the villain. A video surfaced of Ryan's bloody hands digging through the rubble to save me. Rumors followed about him frequently visiting my film set. People online began questioning, what is Ryan trying to do? Is he trying to win Ellie back? Poor Emily, one post read. She was the real one. Who's the third wheel now, ruining a real relationship? This is disgusting. I can't even watch Wildfire anymore, it's tainted. Emily made things worse by posting a crying emoji on her social media, subtly framing herself as the victim. Public opinion turned vicious. My comments were flooded with abuse from people who didn't know the truth. She got pregnant before marriage and even miscarried. Girl, you'll never be a white moonlight. What's wrong with Ryan? Is he blind? Homewrecker, get out of the entertainment industry. That time I hit the trending page under tags like unwed mother, miscarriage scandal. Still grieving the loss of my baby, I ignored my team and paid to have the trending topic removed. But this time I posted a photo of my divorce certificate on Weibo. Not long after, Ryan also posted, 3 years of marriage. I let her down, he wrote. The internet quickly dug up the past, and public opinion flipped almost instantly. I can't believe it, one user commented. He had a wife this whole time, and was still all over his first love, creating romantic buzz for the movie, while being married? Ryan Cooper, doesn't your conscience hurt? Only I seemed to notice one detail. While I was miscarrying, Ryan and Emily were strolling around their old college campus, reminiscing. Hard to say who's worse here, someone posted. Ellie didn't deserve this. Public sentiment turned sharply against Ryan and Emily. The reputation of Wildfire crumbled. The film was officially declared a financial failure. No one was willing to buy tickets anymore. Emily's acting career was destroyed. She had already given up acting when she went abroad. Now, 5 years later, her return had ended in ruin. It was just because Ryan Cooper had already achieved fame and success. You guessed right. He gave a bitter smile and said, so-called white moonlight only exists in memory. In Ryan's memory, Emily was the girl who shared his dream. They had made a promise together. He would become a legendary director and she would shine as a dazzling star. So Emily became his muse, the eternal flame that inspired Wildfire. But was the real Emily like that? The truth was, she had given up on her acting dream long ago when she faded into obscurity. And when Ryan's name began to soar, she returned to China and picked acting back up again. She had never been persistent. Why won't you leave me a way out? Emily accused me. But the only glow Emily had upon re-entering the entertainment world came from the white moonlight fantasy, the nostalgic illusion of Wildfire. Now, with scandal tainting her image, the audience wouldn't accept a fallen star. Her gigs were all cancelled. I told her, Emily, you're the one who didn't leave yourself a way out. A person with a dishonest heart can't go far. I exposed all her manipulative tactics, how her focus was never on her work, but on winning back Ryan and tearing me down. She never realized that in life, the only road worth walking is the one you pave for yourself. Emily faded out of the entertainment industry as quickly as she reappeared. Her stardom, just a fleeting dream, shattered completely. At the same time, Ryan's career also began to decline. He drowned himself in his failed relationship and could no longer create. The once brilliant visionary director could no longer produce anything that amazed. Then there was Luna. I hadn't forgotten her. Quietly, I gave a nudge and helped expose the story between Luna and Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee's wife was a powerful, controlling woman. Soon after, news broke. Mr. Lee was kicked out of his own house with nothing. With her keeper gone, the canary in the gilded cage began to wither. Do you regret marrying Ryan Cooper? That was the first question in a special emotional interview. Too many people were invested in my so-called tragic marriage, treating me as some fragile victim in need of protection. So for the first time, I told the full story in public, even though countless versions had already been told by others. I answered honestly. I used to regret it, but not anymore. The reporter asked, why? I smiled gently. I've come to understand that every step in life has its meaning. If I had to do it all over again, with the mindset and heart I had back then, I would have made the same choices. I loved Ryan for 10 years. 10 years is a long time, long enough for love to become an obsession. Even when I dated other people, it never worked out. That's just how people are. Sometimes you have to hit a wall before you turn around. I realized that marriage was necessary. Without it, Emily would always remain Ryan's unreachable white moonlight, so close, yet forever distant. And if I'd never married him, he would have become my white moonlight instead. I would have idealized him forever, put a filter on everything he was. But after marrying him, I finally saw him clearly, and I realized that, stripped of love's illusion, he was just ordinary. Would you be open to a new relationship? The reporter asked. I shook my head. A failed relationship doesn't mean I'm a failure. Love is a two-way street. Maybe it just wasn't the right person. I joked, I won't say no to someone new, especially now that there's no one in my heart to hold me back. And as for fear of getting hurt, that's not something worth worrying about in advance. As long as you have the courage to begin and the strength to walk away, that's enough. I smiled into the camera. So, to all the fans out there, don't worry about me, I'm really doing great. Little by little, I had finally pulled away from Ryan. He used wildfire to describe love, but I used wildfire to describe myself. I would burn across a vast open field, unextinguished by the storm, lifted high by the wind. Later, I stood on stage holding an award, Best Supporting Actress. I lifted my trophy and the host asked, "Do you have anything you'd like to say?" In my eyes burned not pain, but ambition. I said boldly, "I hope I'll be back here again next time. And I hope when people hear the name Ellie Chen, they'll say, 'She's a damn good actress.'" Thunderous applause filled the room. That trophy was my badge of honor. 3 years later, I brought home Best Actress. I opened the door. Shadow was waiting, wagging his tail. The moment he saw me, he leapt into my arms, whining sweetly. "You missed me, huh?" I laughed, hugging him close. I casually placed the trophy on the shelf and rubbed my face against his. "Sorry I'm late today, buddy." Shadow licked my cheek, and I burst out laughing. "Who says this isn't home? The story ends here."